Hey, Rob.
Mr. Harrington, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great, man. Thank you. Sorry about that. I was in a little bit of panic. I'm at home. We're e-learning today, and I couldn't get any of my computers to do what they're supposed to do.
I understand.
A little bit of a struggle, but hey, we're noon on Saturday.
Yes, and I actually will not be here, but Brownie, we have a home girls basketball game, so I'm gonna make sure everything's squared away and get some information to you guys this week, like as far as like Wi-Fi and different things of that nature, and what door to enter and all that.
Okay. Yeah, I was gonna ask. I've never been to Fisher's before. I've seen it, but I've never been.
Yeah,
All right. Well, welcome everybody to our November Mentors Program meeting. Uh, Welcome. Hopefully, you guys are all doing well. Election day, pretty exciting stuff. Um, I have not yet gotten out to vote, but hopefully, we'll all get that opportunity to leave the building, or in my case, our house, to get out and vote today. Um, Starting our meeting today, anybody have any questions or overall concerns? Leanne and I we've been going back and forth a little bit on email and here before the meeting, our personal reflections, right? So have you had an opportunity to kind of look back at your first season, your first fall season, and reflect on the good? What was positive? What did you do really, really well? And are there those things that potentially you need to look at to improve on for whether it be next fall or the upcoming season? That personal reflection time is we were joking. Sometimes I try to do it right before I fall asleep, and then I usually don't fall asleep till 2 or 3 in the morning. Leanne likes to wake up in the middle of the night and have those reflection times. Um, have you had those opportunities? And if you have, do you got any questions or concerns moving forward?
Or even just an aha moment? Is there something that afterwards you think, boy, I wish I would have done that differently?
I personally, I've haven't jumped on board with the electronic ticketing, and as the IIHSA kind of forced us to do that for our soccer sectional and our upcoming sectionals for the winter, uh, I realized how easy that is. I was a little bit afraid because of the technology part. Um, so we are kind of looking and hopefully moving forward for next year to try that electronic ticketing. There were definitely some hurdles for us. Internet connection at our football site is where we take tickets is very poor, and our setup for ticketing electronically out there would be pretty poor. So it's going to require some alterations and how we do that. But looking back, I think, man, how easy is that? And even better, when you come in at night at 9:30 or 10 o'clock at night, you don't have to count that cash. It's a quick process, and you're in and out and you're back home before you know it. And any time that you can get time to get back home and have some time with your family, or just have some you time, quiet time, that's huge for us. So that I think that's my aha moment for the fall, and one of my big projects as I move forward is trying to figure out how to make that happen. Anybody else have any reflection or questions, good or bad, from the fall season?
Brian, I want to piggyback on yours because we've been using Event Link tickets since COVID, not exclusively. We offer both, but what we found our issue to be was like internet connection. So we take an iPad out to scan them. If we don't open up that iPad where we have Wi-Fi and select the game, that's just a glorified paperweight for the rosters that might blow away because it won't scan tickets. So if that's something that you're doing, or for us, that's something that we know next year, hey, before we take that out to the gate, we've got to pull up the ticket inside with Wi-Fi, and then it'll scan it outside, no problem. And then when we come in and reconnect with Wi-Fi, then it'll download the tickets scanned.
Okay, so let me ask a question on that because I had to use my phone. I had to connect 5G to the credit card scanner. And not that I don't care leaving my phone there for the ticket taker to use, but it's a pain in the butt when it goes to sleep and then you got to reconnect and there's a lot of steps there. So I can download that ticket and just scan it to the iPad and rescan when I get back into the building.
For people who have already purchased their tickets, if you're using the credit card reader, you're going to have Wi-Fi for it.
Okay.
But if you sell tickets in advance or season passes like we do, because you guys were talking earlier about making like digital tickets a little bit cheaper, and then by the time they do the online fees, they're about the same. We give a significant discount to our season passes online, and it's still a good discount by the time the fees are added on. When those people walk up to the gate with that ticket, we have to make sure that our iPad has pulled up the event and it's on like a ticket taker window inside of EventLink so that it scans QR codes. It doesn't have to be on Wi-Fi while it's scanning them if you've already set it up. When you come back inside, then it will download all of your tickets that you scanned to let you know how many season passes, or if you have people who bought tickets for that event. So like the sectional tickets, the IIAAA sold, are sold through that link, then it marks those as red just as soon as we get back in the building.
Okay. All right. That's something to think about. I think our next big step is I've got to get EventLink in and have them talk with our bookkeepers. That's probably my biggest hurdle is getting, out of the mindset of this is how we've always done it. So we should continue to do it like that. They don't like change across the street.
Ryan, one of the things I would recommend, because we had that same hurdle, and at that time, not many people were doing this yet. So the reporting piece to our treasurer was kind of that big question mark. But like, for example, I could have my treasurer pull a report, and so therefore your treasurer could see like how it's separated out and how it reports. Because that's one thing that like when we were certain, she was really nervous about tickets. I talked her into that. And then she was really nervous about camp registrations. And finally, I just kind of pushed that snowball off the cliff and let it happen. And then she realized, okay, wait, this says exactly it's football camp. This is baseball camp. And so it actually, they do a really good job in their reporting and their digital payments. Leanne, we do quite a bit different actually with how we operate our gate. So a couple of things we use cell phones only, and it's completely our ticket taker's cell phone that they're using their phone to scan our tickets. And every ticket booth, we have a little Tupperware box, and inside that box we put a portable battery charger. We also have a piece of paper in there with 5 dummy accounts that EventLink gave us. You can set up, I know how to do it now, but I didn't back then, but it's basically like Fisher's Tickets 1 with a password. And so therefore, if someone shows up and they aren't assigned to take tickets for you that night, they can log into one of those dummy accounts and then they have access to the tickets. Couple other things that you could do, Leanne, with what you're talking about. And I don't know, like for example, here at Fisher's High School, athletic department pays for our cell phones, and we pay for our principal. We actually pay for our principal's phone through our athletic funds. But we have a mobile hotspot that we have, and currently we let our student streaming services use it. But if we ever got to the point where we were going to do iPads for $30 a month, you can have a mobile hotspot that you just take out to your event as well, and you could have that out there if you're running those iPads and you want to have the credit card purchases or have that Wi-Fi access, as long as your area has a good enough service. So that's kind of how we do it, and it works really well. Our ticket takers, matter of fact, I would say over 2/3 of our ticket takers are kids, students. And so through Final Forms, we just sent out an email at the end of the year and said, hey, we need more ticket takers. We ran all of our events last year with like 12 people, and now we're probably up to close to 30. And again, 2/3 of them are probably students. Obviously they don't really want to work Friday night football, but they're running all of our other events almost. So, and they're really good with their phones and knowing how to do those digital tickets.
Do you pay them?
Well, that's good too. You have students that don't have to actually handle cash if you're doing that.
Correct. We do pay them. They get paid $35 for a single game. We pay them $50 for a double game. So like JV and varsity soccer, $50. Freshman football on a Saturday morning, $35. So try to put it to the time, right? Of their time commitment. We ask everybody shows up 45 minutes early. And as we're onboarding people, like for example, if I have 2 ticket takers for a game tomorrow night, and someone wants to start taking tickets, we'll assign a 3rd spot, and they can learn alongside the other 2. And that's how we get it, how we train them. But usually it's pretty simple, and they pick it up pretty quickly.
So speaking of that, Rob had just mentioned about workers. One thing that I would recommend is a quick note or a follow-up thank you to all your fall workers, because that's going to help them if they're going to continue to do that for you. Think of the positions that are hard to find, your chain gang, announcer. If you have an announcer that leaves, you're going to need to replace them, and it might be important to know that now so you have time to do that. And if you've got the funds available, once in a while, giving your chain gang a shirt or something like that always helps, because I think we're probably all in the same boat. It's tough to find workers, especially now, because a lot of them do expect to get paid. And if you do have volunteer workers, I think it's good to keep them around as long as you possibly can.
Greg, I'll piggyback on that in that we don't pay our workers, but when our high school staff signs up to work 3 events, then we get them a staff shirt. And then we start off the year with a free breakfast sponsored by the athletic department. And we bought our chain gang shirts and that sort of stuff. So if you have a contract that you have promo money, that's a great use of your promo money. But definitely take care of those workers.
Yeah, I'm sitting here and I'm feeling kind of guilty. We bought all our ticket takers, and it's selfishly I wanted some new gear too. We got our school board and all our administration some new gear, and it all came in last week. And then the chain gang was kind of like, well, how come you didn't get us anything? And I was, no, these that I probably should have. As I'm sitting like, man, all right, that's my email after we get off of this is fix that situation, because you're right. It's just one of those things. It's like, hey, I want to take care of these ticket takers, and I appreciate them because they work pretty hard, and they do several nights a week where my chain gang comes in 5 times, or my football PA comes in 5 times. But we only have 4 ticket.
Hey, and don't forget, if you let those chain gang guys go to the concession stand at halftime, that holds them off pretty well too.
Oh, they go in. They follow the officials through the hospitality. Once the officials come out, they follow right in, and they're kind of like the locusts. They come and clean up everything that's left over. So,
see, they're still working for you.
I know. Yeah, that's just it. They've never said they're not going to, but it's probably a nice thing to do. So, all right. Well, I appreciate that, and I don't want to make this the Ryan Harrington mentoring session where you guys help me out. So I appreciate that information on ticketing. Anybody else have anything that they reflected on, good or bad, that they want to share and talk about? How are we on our winter season preparation? We probably maybe have had 1, maybe 2 girls basketball games so far. Any issues there moving forward with preparation? Anything special you did with your gyms beforehand to make sure that you were ready for basketball? That question was kind of thrown out at our meeting a couple of weeks ago for our statewide AD meeting, and it was interesting to hear. As we were going through, I felt like, okay, our PA's checked, our scoreboards all light up and work because we've used it all for volleyball already, so it really wasn't something on the checklist. But what are the state of your basketball nets? You know, do they got holes in them? Do we need to replace those? What are the, did you check the height of the rims? Interesting enough, you'd think, yeah, those are set, but sometimes those bolts come loose and they slide around a little bit. So did you check those? Any lighting issues? Always nice to, I like to do, especially at the beginning of the year, just kind of do a dry run for myself. And that usually happens during the day where I'll just kind of stand, say, okay, we're opening the doors. Where am I at? What do we need? You know, ticket taker is going to go here, and just kind of run through what my night's going to look like and where I need to be at what times in order to ensure that everything runs smoothly. Not bad. And sometimes I bring my secretary along with me too, because a lot of times she knows more than I do.
One thing to consider for the winter season, if you've not done so, is meet with your maintenance people or your head custodian. Those of you that have multiple gyms where you've got PE in the main gym and all that, you know, does your school have a floor scrubber? Because those basketball coaches are going to be all over you early about, hey, this floor is slick, you know, and what are we doing to combat that problem? I know for us, our floor, our main gym floor gets scrubbed 3 times a week, and our auxiliary gets 2 times a week. So it's every night one gym's getting scrubbed, because, you know, when winter hits, you're going to have all that salt intake coming in to get on your floor and all that. So, you know, if you do have a floor scrubber, check that out. You may want to become operational on it if you're going to be the one that has to do it, because your custodians are the busiest people in the world if you ask them. So you might want to clear that up and see what the process is at your school for that.
And maybe have those conversations too with your coaches, things that we don't think about, but we've got we don't have an air conditioning or cooling system in our gym. So we installed, and I'm going to use the proper term on this, the big ass fans. That's what they're called. And so
we got 2 of them.
So, you know, they spin, but there's dead spots where all that dust that's kicking around are going to sit, and your coaches will know exactly where that dust is setting. And that could be center court. Is that something that they want the court mopped, or not mopped, but dusted at halftime? Is that something you've got to get somebody out there with those 6-foot dusters and run laps up and down the main court at halftime just to clear that off? Your coaches will know that better than you will. So talk with your coaches and see what those issues are maintenance wise, and find a way that you can get that resolved for them. It's you know, in that case with the dust, it really is a safety concern. What about for wrestling? Kind of again talking about that dry run. What does your setup look like? Wrestling's kind of unique that we're going to put out mat or mats. Are you going to run 1 or 2 mats for your dual meets? We like to run 2, where we'll run our JV, and then we can right away get our varsity onto another mat and kind of flip flop them back and forth. Or is there a cleaning procedure in between? What does that look like? And I think that, again, that's a conversation with your coach to see what they prefer. We're running a girls tournament this weekend, and for the first time ever, Highland's going to host this tournament, and we're going to put 4 mats in our main gym. So that's going to require some unique setup in terms of what bleachers are out and how do we keep spectators away from the mats. Entry and exit points for our athletes. Where does a trainer go? Garbage cans, spray bottles. We were kind of going through all that process the last 2 weeks of what do we need? Do the prep early and do it often, so that the day of the meet or the day of the contest, everything goes pretty smoothly for you. Those are the things that you don't have to troubleshoot, because that stuff will eat your time up when you need to be elsewhere. And then how many, has everybody got a swimming pool? If you do, again, walk through with your coaches. What does that game day setup look like? Where do you sit your visitors? Are they on the same side as your team? If you've got a smaller facility, or maybe your deck is a little bit larger on one side and all your benches are on one side, what does that look like? Where does your coach want your team as opposed to the opposing team? Do they want them? Is it fair to put your opposing team over by the diving well where they can't stand along the side of the pool and cheer on their teammates? Or do you split that up? And with swimming, there's a lot of unique electronic stuff that runs through high tech. And your Daktronics machine, is everything communicating? That's, as a former swim coach, that was always the biggest frustration, is my computer communicating with my Daktronics box? And how do we make that happen so that we don't have any delays in that meet? So getting in front of your coaches and having those preseason meetings on what it looks like, and doing those dry runs will definitely help you out. And then your first time through, or even your second, or here we are, I'm year 8, there will always be a surprise, something you didn't think about, that, hey, this works out a lot better. And don't be afraid to make those changes if you feel like that's going to be the best for your athletes.
Ryan, I would say on swimming also, make sure that you're communicating with your coach. So we got the email from Carrie Rosati about creating the diving events. Talk with your swim coach. Do they want you guys to create those meets in the My IIHSA site, or are they going to do that?
Yeah, that's a good question. And again, as a former swim coach, I would think your coach would want to have that ability to do. It's always nice that you can, as an athletic director, you can double check it and make sure that it's done in a timely manner and done correctly. But with diving, there's so many. A 101A is definitely different than a 101B, and a little click of a button can definitely cause some issues. So
yes. So what I did for my
Ryan,
coach yesterday was I just set them up, and then she can go in and put in the divers and the dives. I just created the meets for her and sent the links to all the schools so they can do the same.
yeah.
So Ryan, on that note, I was going to mention the for wrestling too, the weight management. If you've not familiarized yourself with that on the weight management program, that's something you really have to stay on top of, because your coach should be providing you, at the end of every meet, that information for you to stay and put in the system. So, once you get it down pat, it's a pretty simple process, but it's one of those that you got to stay on top of every week, because you got to have so many weigh-ins and so many have to be after January and all that. You definitely want to make sure your wrestlers are eligible to work or to wrestle in the tournament for sure.
Yeah. And with that, obviously, at this point, you're probably starting to do a little body fat testing. Make sure that your trainer has access into the My IIHSA, so he can put, or she can put, that information into the My IIHSA, so that weight management sheet can get done correctly.
Speaking of that weight management sheet, real fast, if you go to the IHSA.org, that there is a link under wrestling for that weight management sheet, but those are the old weight classes. The myihsa.net under resources and wrestling, that is where you need to find the most up-to-date weight management sheet, because we do have new weight classes this year, and they're actually different. I believe they're different for boys and girls. I'm not 100% on that, but I'm pretty sure they are. But that's where you can find that weight management sheet.
And also, you might want to double check.
Sorry, Greg, I stepped on you. Go ahead.
It's okay. I was going to say, make sure you check your scales, because your scales have to be certified every year by a weights and management person, and every county should have one that they'll come out and they'll certify your scale. So, like we host a lot of major tournaments, and like Ryan said, 4 mats. We've got 6 mats for our big McKee tournament, and all that. So you want to make sure if you do have a lot of scales that they are certified.
Couple things.
When,
Jumping
go
back to swimming. If you host meets, hopefully you've already secured your officials. But then I would recommend, as you're going through this season and officials are coming to your place, ask them about dates for the next year. Get them locked in as quickly as possible, because sometimes swim officials can be very difficult to get, and they do book their calendars pretty quickly. Going back to the weights and the scale certifications, this is not done by our conference, but I did hear of a conference here in Central Indiana at one of their conference meetings, like maybe a September meeting or the August meeting. They all bring their digital scales, and the weights and measure guy certifies every school in their conference at that. So that's a pretty good idea. If does it save you time? I don't know, but that is something that's out there, and so you may want to bring that to your conference.
Yeah, I would definitely, if you haven't, collect your scales. And for us here in Lake County, they actually just come to us. They're usually unannounced. So at the beginning of the school year, I just tell my wrestling coach, bring all your scales down here, and we'll just store them until Lake County comes out and gets those certified. And then if you don't, if it doesn't pass, you're going to have to find somebody to rectify that. So talk with other ADs in the area. Where are they getting their scales fixed? Who's doing it? Who's doing it for free? We're lucky here in Lake County that we have a company who is owned by a former wrestler here in Northwest Indiana. I don't know who he wrestled for, but he'll fix everybody's scale for free. He just goes through and gets it all done. So talk with other ADs in the area if that comes up. With that weight, one more last thing on wrestling is Greg had mentioned getting those weight sheets. Once you get that weight sheet, input it, get it into the .net ASAP. Don't sit on it and think, oh, I'm going to do all this. The day your entries are due, because you're not going to know. You got to stay on top of it. Are they getting the appropriate number of weigh-ins at a certain weight class? And it'll flag it if you don't meet. If you've lost too much weight, it will come up as red. If you're on track, it'll come up as green, and we've got to get six weigh-ins at that appropriate weight class in order to enter at that weight class. If it does come up as orange, that usually means you put something in, hit enter, and then you went back and realized you probably made a mistake. You hit a 2 instead of a 1, and it didn't correctly do it. So you went back and changed it to a 1. It'll come up orange. So it's flagged. Typically, if it's flagged, that means Mr. Falkins is going to give you an email or a phone call within the week to see what happened there, so that there can be some clarification on why it was flagged. I always find that if it was an honest mistake, when I do it, I always just shoot him an email, say, hey, I accidentally hit this number instead of this number, or I thought I was on John Smith, and actually I was on Jane's, and I put in the wrong weight. I put in the wrong weight. So let him know ahead of time, and he can scratch you off that list. It saves him some time, and we'll save you a phone call from Robert. They're not scary phone calls, but you got to have justification for why you made that change in your weights. Anybody have any questions or concerns about any of their winter sports moving forward? So we're comfortable there. What about your management of your events the day of? What does we're going a little bit different here from soccer and football, where we're outside and we've got our bigger venues that are a little bit more wide open, to we're going to bring in a little smaller crowd maybe, but we're at a little tighter quarters. Have you gone through and thought what your crowd management's going to look like in your facility? how much security you're going to need, where you're going to place your security. Really just, what's that game day management look like? Where are you doing your ticketing? Do you have proper internet connections for your ticketing? So again, it's not bad to sit and do that dry run and just kind of, hey, what does this look like? Basketball is a little bit different beast. Your student sections. We had our first basketball game on Thursday. We didn't have a huge student section, but I heard every word that they said, which was a little bit different at football or soccer, where they're a little bit spread out in the open air. You don't necessarily hear those conversations or what they're saying. I think the whole gym heard what they said. So I had a nice evening sitting in the student section and just kind of hanging out with them a little bit, making sure that they were cheering appropriately for our team.
Ryan, I think when you look at going into winter, and hopefully you guys have all got this, but a couple of things that I would recommend is make sure you have your PA announcers all trained up on being the appropriate. Obviously they're not trying to incite emotion or just what they're so what kind of script are you providing for them? Are they providing the script? Do you have sportsmanship reads in the script? Do you have does that PA announcer do that, or do the kids do that? Music, what kind of music's going to be played? Is that school appropriate? Those are all things to think about, like what you're pushing through the PA at your event. And then the other piece, as a new AD, what I'd strongly encourage is if you've got a main entrance to your gymnasium, once you have everything up and running, I would be there welcoming everyone. And so people get to know you, get to, shake hands with you real quick, maybe, have a short conversation, start building those relationships. I feel like because, sometimes those are going to be needed as Ryan just said, sometimes it's with students that you got to jump up and have a good relationship with. Sometimes it's parents you're going to have to, but, we've got going into the basketball season, going into a different season, you have a new set of parents, right? And they may have not participated in any fall sports. I always make sure I always do go into the freshman game the first night and give a little bit of a personal announcement in that freshman game. Don't let the PA person do that, or many times you don't have a PA person for the freshman game, but go in there, welcome those parents, explain to them, that the kids are working hard, the athletes or the coaches are working hard, referees are working hard, and now it's their time to work hard at being cheerful parents and cheering for their kid and cheering for other kids on the team, but being positive. Add that personal touch, try to set the tone for that freshman, because again, this is freshman basketball players. They may not do any other sport for your school. And the last time they played may have been at an unruly junior high, or it might have been at an unruly AAU game. So that I would, again, going every freshman sport, I try to make that a habit beyond the parent meeting, right? Because you're only getting, because you also are getting FaceTime in front of the visiting fans as well. And so there's a couple of things. Then the other thing, Skip, just so I don't forget to say this, if you don't have fall coaches meetings, evaluations set yet, you might want to get with your fall coaches and get those evaluations set. And that could probably be a discussion topic, or if anybody has questions on that, that might be something that, not to steal your train here, Ryan, but
No, we can add that for December. I've got a particularly couple difficult ones coming up, so we can share some ideas and kind of discuss what works and doesn't work. I may be finding out what works and doesn't work. So you've got
women.
Good.
So I saw this the other day. It popped into my head when Rob mentioned that. I saw a really good social media post about the new free throw 1-on-1 rule that I thought was really good, that people tweeted out, because you're going to have a lot of old timers. When somebody gets that that magic number foul, they're going to be screaming 1-1. So I thought that was pretty good to as a retweet to inform your fans who all want to be referees on the side.
Mhm. Yeah, Greg, that's a great idea. We had kind of talked about that a little bit for our first girls game about how we were going to combat that, and we kind of had a PA announcement ready to go. I was shocked at how many of our parents and just general spectators knew the rule and understood it. There was no what's going on. There was no, there wasn't going to be a riot over it that the officials didn't know what they were doing.
Yeah.
They handled it fairly well. I was shocked. And kind of going back to that facility thing, it kind of sparked my mind. Things and maybe it's one of those things I put in the back of my mind that I don't want to remember. We've got a 4-square LED HD jumbotron deal, and our school firewall would never allow us to update it, so we're about 100 updates behind. Well, I finally got some technical people there, and we backdoored the firewall, and I was able to get my jumbotron updated, and went through a couple slides. Hey man, everything's working. This is fantastic. All right, I'm real excited for it. We put our game day screen up that keeps the score and fouls and everything else. Nothing worked, not a thing. So we're in the JV game. The scoreboard's not lighting up, or it's not doing what it's supposed to do. It looks pretty, but there's no score. There's nothing being updated. One of those things I did not think to run through and just, hey, run a mock game real quick and see if everything lit up. So it took about 45 minutes to rebuild that slide, and it was just it was a rebuild, but the old frames that were on there were all outdated. So when we did this update, nothing worked, and that 100% was on me for not going through that. But it was really nothing that I'd never thought about. So yeah, light that scoreboard up if you've got one of those fancy screens. You kind of, all right, so we talked about our facilities. We kind of talked about game day. What about your emergency action plans? Have you walked through your emergency action plans with your coaches? Where are you going in case of a fire? And that may be unique if the fire alarm goes off. It's a little bit different. You're going outside, but it could be -10 and a foot of snow on the ground, and you've got players out there. You're not allowing them to go back to the locker room to put on warm clothes. You're getting them out of the building. Where are you going to put them? Are we bringing buses in? Are you taking them to is there another building that's close, that's not connected to the building that the alarm's going off? We take them across the street to central office and put them in our school board chairs, and let them hang out there until we get an all clear to come back. If that alarm goes off, what are you doing with the scoreboard? Where are you at in the game? What's the score? What's the quarter? What's the time? These are things that you're going to have to either take note of or have somebody take note of for you. Not the first thing on your mind, but when I hear a fire alarm, I take a picture of the scoreboard. It's my first thing as I'm moving to the places that I need to be. Just kind of a 2-in-1, just so I have it noted, just in case they forget to stop the clock and the clock keeps running throughout the fire.
So on that note, this is serious. You probably should know how to turn the fire alarms off. I've had that happen to me twice in 21 years, and one of them was in a sectional championship game, and it was one of those. It's just a false alarm, but I knew where to go and how to shut that off, because a lot of times it may be a one-man show where it's just your maintenance people aren't going to be there probably or anything like that. It's probably a good idea to know where to go to troubleshoot if something like that happens, because a lot of times it may just be a simple false alarm and you can shut the system off, because a lot of these systems are going to tell you what exactly the problem is, where the alarm is, and if it might be in fact a false alarm. So probably a good idea to know where that is in your building and how to make an adjustment.
And with that, Greg, I would say also know your local fire code law. I know how to do all the stuff you just said, but if I touch that before the fire department gets there, we get fined.
Yeah.
So even if I was like, I know it's a false alarm, the darn popcorn machine smoked up again and set the fire alarm off, which is normally the case, right? If I try to reset that alarm, or I let people back in before the fire chief comes and resets that alarm, we get a pretty hefty fine. So make sure you know your fire code on that. Yeah, so where are your AEDs in your facilities, and where are potentially your fire extinguishers, just in case you need them. Take a mental note of where those are, so if there was ever an instance that you would need them, definitely take a look and make sure you know where they were. I like to tell a funny, when I was coaching swimming, we had a water fountain caught fire in the middle of a swim meet, and I was running around like crazy. I know the fire extinguisher's over here somewhere. Where the heck's the fire extinguisher? Well, the fire extinguisher doubled as a coat rack. Thus, I couldn't find it when I was looking for it. So make sure you know where it's at, and make sure you're not doubling it up as a coat rack. It has a purpose, an emergency purpose. Make sure you know those locations of everything. We talked about going over the emergency action plan with your coaches. One thing, and you got to have the conversation, and it's not a fun conversation. If there's an active shooter situation, where are your kids going, right? What are your instructions to your coaches? Where are they going to go? Every facility is going to be a little bit different. We tell, spectators are going to scatter and get out away from harm. Athletes are getting into a locker room and locking a door, and they don't come out until we have a secret word. And until they hear that word, it's either me or whoever it is, they're not to open that door. How do you communicate your emergency action plans to your visiting teams? Is that just via email when you send out your event information to them? Typically, but how many coaches are reading that? So I would just very quickly, hey, here's the key to your locker room. If there's a fire or fire alarm goes off, we're going to come out this door, and then so-and-so, whoever that may be, will be there to get you to where you need to go. All right, so you have those conversations with visitors too. What about something we'll probably all experience at once this winter is we're going to have a weather delay or a weather closure. Check with your school. What's your policy on that? If school's closed, are you allowed to still have a practice? If it's safe to get there, obviously. We don't. We have to make sure that the lots are clear. It's not necessary. Well, if the roads are safe, can we get into the parking lot? And if the parking lots aren't plowed and the crew's coming out, our staff's coming out to plow, they don't want to plow around cars, right? It gets that they're going to have to come back out and clean up. So they prefer us not to. So it's a conversation usually on winter day between superintendent and our head of maintenance to see what time and if we can get our people in. What about delays? I mean, you got a 2-hour delay, but your swim team's already in the pool. They don't make that call till 6:30, but your swim team's been in for hour 15, hour and a half. What are we doing with them? So things to think about and conversations to have. I was always, again, being a swim coach and they delayed practice, that meant, well, they don't have to be anywhere. That's just extra practice. We'll just keep them a little bit longer, half hour or so, for the fog to clear up so it's safe for them to drive home, was always my thought. But have those conversations with your coaches, your superintendents, and transportation people. Real quick, back to that emergency action plan. How many when we're looking at your spectators, how do they know, or how are you communicating your emergency action plan for them to them? Is it a announcement that happens as part of your pregame script? Is it, do you put it in your programs as a page? something that they can read and look at very quickly. If you have, and this came to me from my last year, it was my 10-year-old. He heard it and he says, yeah, that's pretty cool, Dad. That's a great idea. Hey, why don't you put that up on the Jumbotron too? I said, all right, here's the keys, buddy. You're now the athletic director. That's a great idea. And it takes 2 minutes to make a slide to put up on your Jumbotron in case of emergency. Or if there is an emergency, you can click that button with instructions on what to do and where to go. Just looking out for the safety of your spectators so that they're all aware, and the liability of it. If something were to happen, you can say we verbally and visually gave instructions of our emergency action plan so that our spectators knew where to go. So just random thoughts. Anybody have any questions on anything? We're getting close to the 10 o'clock hour here, 11 o'clock if you're out Eastern. Anybody going to nationals? The national conference in December? 1, 2, 3. All right, Rob. I know you've been to quite a bit of them, right?
I've been to 2 live, and then one of them was the virtual year.
All right.
So
sorry, I won't ask you a question with a cookie in your mouth next time.
that's all right.
I asked, I was like, oh man,
Protein
he's trying to get his breakfast down.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No,
yeah, they're good. They're good. I know I've been to one, and I did the one virtual. A lot of great ideas. Get to some of those breakouts. Just some unique ideas, different perspectives from different parts of the country and how they do things. I found it to be very helpful. So if you ever have an opportunity, or if you have that opportunity to get the nationals, do the same. Get out there and do it. A reminder, your IIAA conference is coming up in March, 17th through the 20th. I don't know, registration's not up and running on that yet.
Not yet. Not yet.
No. All right, keep an eye out for that. We'll get information out on that. That's a big one, one that I really enjoy, because it's you and your peers there. A lot of great information.
That date might be last year's date, or it's the 16th through the 19th.
Oh, sorry, 16th
So
through the 19th.
we wrap. Yeah, we start on Saturday with some LTI classes. We'll wrap up on Tuesday.
Yeah.
Going back to the national too. As you start this process of being a new AD, really encourage you to start that certification journey and getting the classes required to get your RAA. You have to have 2 years of service, so you can't get it right away, but you can knock all the classes off. Every single class that's offered is taught at the national. And then obviously we'll teach, classes again in March, but between the national, between the state conference, and maybe even doing stuff online, you could get all 3 of the required classes knocked out and be ready for that RAA, which is actually you just complete a form and then submit the payment for that. But strongly would encourage you to start working towards that certification of your CAA with aspirations of getting to that CMAA down the road.
Good. All right. That is all that I have. Anybody have any questions, comments, concerns, anything we can help with? All right. I believe that's going to be about it then. So good luck to everybody coming up. Again, winter sports, kind of a different venues, different obstacles, different hurdles. Good luck. If you need any help, obviously reach out to one of us, or maybe you've got somebody locally that you can work with to help you out. If we don't have the answers, we can definitely try to help you find them. So thank you very much, guys. Have a great rest of the week, and we'll be in touch.
Thanks.
Thank you.